evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. I know it's a little bit cold and snowy today, but we're very grateful that you've made the trip. Just a couple of health and safety announcements. We're not expecting any alarms, but if the fire alarm does go off, then just follow members of staff and they'll guide you to the exit points and the outside point where we have to meet. So my name's Anne Fitchett. I work at the Institute of Neuroscience and I help to organise all of our public events. And I'm very pleased that we were asked to do these Holmes Lectures this year and we were given the topic of vision. So this week we're going to take a tour around the animal kingdom and talk a little bit about animal vision. Before next week, maybe some of you are booked onto both lectures, we'll move into human vision. But this week we're focusing on animal vision. And I'd like to introduce our four speakers. So we have Claire, Candy, Gerrit, and Diana, who are all researchers in the Institute of Neuroscience, and they're going to talk to you a little bit about vision and some about the research projects that happen in our institute. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Candy.
All right, thank you very much. So, we find it pretty hard to see in the dark, I think you'll agree. But although we find it quite difficult, and it's quite tricky, for some animals it's much easier. And for this little predator that I'm sure you all recognise, they can see pretty well in the dark. So cats come out at night, they need to forage and hunt small little rodents, they need to be able to spot them under the stars and under the moon. So they have very big eyes and they have very big pupils. You can see how wide the pupils are in this animal, trying to collect as much light as it can. And in fact, large eyes and big pupils are really common in animals that are living in the dark. Like this owl here, again, you can see the kind of eyes that it has. Now, while these animals have very big eyes and try to capture light, there are some animals that live in the dark, like this beautiful looking mole rat. I'm sure you'll all agree. Gorgeous looking animal. These animals live in tunnels underground. So there's no stars and there's no moon. There's no light really for them to capture and to use. And as you can see, they've kind of given up on seeing. They have very small eyes and they don't have a good sense of vision. So, why would you invest in your eyes if there isn't much to see? So for animals living in these dark and in these dim conditions, it really depends on their lifestyle as to how important eyes are to them and the kind of visual systems that they have. But when we look at animals that live in the daytime, like all these animals here, we see quite a bewildering array, absolutely beautiful eyes that are found across the animal kingdom. And these eyes aren't just different sizes, but you can see they're different colours and they're different shapes. And they have different sized and different shaped pupils. So some pupils are quite round, others are quite fine and quite fine slits, and others look like rectangles. And whilst we think that having two eyes is pretty normal and pretty standard, actually when you look across animals, they can have many more eyes than that. So spiders will typically have 8, and a lot of insects have up to 5 eyes. So why do animals have such variation in their eyes? Why are they so different? What are they for? How do they work? How do they help animals survive? So we're going to be telling you a little bit about that. But before I tell you what we know, I'm going to be testing what you know. And we're going to have a little quiz. So what I'd like you to do, I'm going to show you a series of eyes from animals. And I'd like you to put your hand up when you think you know what the animal is and tell me what it is. I believe we've got some prizes here. So we have prizes for the right answers. So if you... No. Researchers from Newcastle University are not allowed to put their hand up, but anyone else is more than welcome to. So I'm going to show you a series of slides, and when you put your hand up, I'll go to you, and you can tell me what you think that animal is. And there's prizes for the right answers. Okay, is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Okay, here goes.
Ow!
Oh my. I think that was about everybody's hand all at once. I've made it way too easy. I think we've given it away already. Did someone here already say it? Oh, okay. So we do have this. So we've had an owl over here. That's not right.
Eagle!
Did you say eagle? I'm sorry, I heard owl. Did you say eagle? Oh, all right. Okay. So, does anybody know what type of eagle this is? Okay, what do you think?
Is it a hawk?
It's not a hawk. It is a type of eagle. Yes.
It's a bald eagle.
It is a bald eagle. Okay. So, bald eagles are particularly good at seeing. They have incredible eyesight. You often hear the term, eagle-eyed. Well, that's for good reason. So these animals are thought to be able to see a rabbit moving at over 3 kilometres away. So these have incredible vision. Okay, we ready for the next one? And I need your help here because there's a lot of hands going up. Okay, are you ready? Go. Ooh, I've been one of. Go on.
In the black coat back there?
A goat?
Oh, it is a goat. I thought that was a hard one. Okay, it's a beautiful, beautiful blue-eyed goat. So, what's cool about goats is they have these slits of pupils, and that gives them a very wide view that sort of coincides with the horizon. And it's not just goats who have it. I thought someone might say sheep, because sheep have these types of eye as well. And the really cool thing about them is they always keep that slit level with the horizon. So whether their heads are up or whether their heads are down, the slit always stays level with the horizon. Does anyone know why that might be? Yes. Yep. Yep.
So that they can see predators at the same level,
Mhm.
and they don't have to see predators which are walking.
Okay, so they've got a nice wide range of view, and that keeps them, they can see any predator coming along that sort of horizontal route towards them. Okay, here's another one. Right, go. Oh,
Hawk!
I think we should do it.
what? Frog, okay. I think we need prizes for everybody, actually. So this is indeed a frog, and it's actually a red-eyed tree frog from Central America, and it has this really weird eyelid. So like us, it's trying to keep moisture in, but actually it's but it keeps part of its eye open even while it's got its eyelid shut. And that's, again, to keep an eye open for predators. So vision, as you can see, is really important for predators. Okay, and this one? Okay. I mean, I think these have been pretty fast up. So one down here? A minion. Do you know who? Huh? Bob? No? Anyone else? Stuart! Yeah, I can hear the whispers. It is indeed Stuart. I believe, I'm not a Minion fan, and I have Googled Minion vision, and I couldn't find one interesting fact about it. So I think this is a research project in waiting that we'll be taking up after this. So hopefully that has given you a little bit of background about animal vision and how it varies. Gerrit's going to tell us a little bit more about how these eyes work.
Thank you, Candy. So, we've seen different eyes from different animals and even minions. So, and their vision is also quite different from each other. And why is that? So, to answer this question, we have to take a little journey towards the eye and learn the eye a little bit better. So, I see here now a little pup, and he's looking at a green apple. So I have my dog here too, this Pudge. I show him the same apples here. But as you know, or you might know, there are also red apples. So what do you think when I show my little doggy now a green and a red apple. Can you tell me which one is a red apple? Yes, please. No? You have other idea?
It's the green one, the red one.
Oh. So, well, you're quite right. So, the dog can't distinguish the green and the red apple. So why is that? So let's have a look at an eye. If I could take out my eye, I would have a squidgy little ball filled with liquid. And when you look at the front, what you see is the iris. This is the colorful part. Then you see the pupil. This is what is the black part, which is going sometimes smaller, sometimes bigger, depending on the light condition. You see also the cornea. You can see the lens. But what you can't see is the back of the eye. And at the back of the eye, there's something very interesting. It's called the retina. We have a lot of complicated words in science, but let me explain. The retina is a little thin tissue which is lining the back of the eye, and it has special cells, light-sensitive cells in it. And the main purpose of the eye is to focus the light onto the retina, onto these light-sensitive cells. And then these light-sensitive cells bring the information or convert this information to another type of cells, which are called neurons. And again, it's a complicated word. Neuron is ancient Greek for nerve. And so we scientists use these complicated word quite often. I try, if you don't know it, what I'm talking, please raise your hands and ask me. But I try to explain at least these very complicated names. So, and the light signal is then converted and is sent via the optic nerve to the brain. So, some of you, I see, maybe you have also have been to an eye test. And they do a test, and an optometrist is doing a test and is looking into your eye. This is what he would see. This is basically when you could look through the lens to the end, to the back of the eye. And this is the retina, how it looks like. It's a pinkish tissue. It's full of blood vessels. Well, that's also not much more. It does not help us to answer the question why that dog can only see green apples. So we have to zoom in. We have to basically make ourselves smaller and wander towards the retina. And if we small enough and we have a high enough magnification, we come to the cells that are interesting. These are the light-sensitive cells of the retina. And there are two types of them. One is called rods. They're the small and numerous ones. And one is called cones. They are bigger. So what is the difference between these two light-sensitive cells? Rods are very, very light-sensitive. And when I mean very, I mean very. And we have loads of them. We use them mainly in the night or in dim light condition, basically when there is no sun to see or no colors. And there, I'm coming to this now. Rods can barely detect colors. So in the night, there's the speaking, in the dark, all cats are gray, and this is true. So we don't see colors. But fortunately, we have another cell type, which are the cones, and they give us the ability to see colors. And normally, there are 3 different kinds of cones, which can detect red, green, and blue colors. But there are also animals who have less than 3 cone types, but there are also many animals who have more than 3 cone types. And we will hear about these very special animals later, and Candy will give us a little tour through it. Coming to a very special animal, it's us, humans. We humans, we see 3 colors. We have 3 different cone receptors. And we can mix all colors that we see, basically only having these 3 cone types. But I don't want to tell too much about human vision. We will hear about next Wednesday, same place, same time, about human vision. Coming back to our dog, to him. And so the poor dog has only two cone types. One can see blue and the other can see yellow. That makes the dog vision different to us. So this is a comparison. So he cannot see red colors. So he could not see all these beautiful red shirts here. So he would see in yellow, or even green, or greenish yellow. But there's also another difference between ours and the vision of a dog. Can you spot that difference? It's there.
Yes, less difference.
Yes, it's blurry. This is a very blurry vision. Why is that? So, simply spoken, the poor dog has not, the density of the cones is not that high that ours. So we can see much sharper than the dog. But the dog has one big advantage. It has but the density of the watch is much higher than ours. And maybe you remember what I told you about watts, is that they are very light sensitive. So in the night, and this is again a comparison, the dog really outperforms us. So he can see very clear structures, whereas we can't see anything. So next time you go and play with your dog, if you have one, just try it at night, and you will be amazed to see what's happening. Okay, this brings me to the end of my part, and I will now hand over to Candy, telling about the animals with more coat types.
Yeah, so we've heard, the dog's still here. So we've heard about dogs, done enough about dogs. I'm going to tell you a little bit about birds. So birds are interesting. They have 4 of these colour sensitive, these cone cells. And for some birds, they're distributed within the range in which we see. But for about half the birds, it's actually sensitive to a kind of light that we're not actually sensitive to, and that's ultraviolet light. So it sits, that's a kind of wavelength of light that sits beyond the blues and the purples that we see. And it's hard to imagine what it would be like to see in the UV, but that's what these birds can actually do. It's interesting, it's not just birds that have this, but some fish and some insects are also able to see into the UV. It's somewhat of a mystery as what the benefits of this type of vision might be to birds. But there have been some suggestions as to why UV vision might benefit these animals. And the first thing is that it might be about finding food. So these berries here, like a lot of berries, they look sort of pretty bluish, blackish to us against the foliage. On a cloudy day, they'd be much harder to see. And of course, these birds have to go around, they have to find food and forage for it. But actually, these berries also have a coating that reflects ultraviolet light. So that means it's putting it back into the bird's eye, and they can see it. So that means that these berries, they may actually look a different colour to birds, but they're also going to look quite a lot brighter than the background because there's more wavelengths of light hitting the eye, and they can detect more of the light. So these will look more conspicuous and more detectable to birds. So perhaps the UV vision enables them to find food. But it's not just that, because these berries only have this coating when they're ripe. So when they're fully ripe, really tasty fruit, full of sugars, all the tannins and those bitter toxins that we don't like in fruit have been reduced. And so the birds could actually be using their UV vision to discriminate between those fruits that are ready and ripe to eat and those that aren't. And I've actually brought along a blackbird with me today, and we're going to illustrate that. Could my blackbird just come up for a moment? Yeah, a round of applause for blackbird. I've got a very difficult task for you today, blackbird. I've got a couple of berries here. So one of these is very ripe and delicious and lots of sugar. Yeah, you'll really like it. And the other one has quite a lot. It's not ripe yet, it hasn't got much sugar in it, and I'm afraid it's quite bitter tasting. So I was wondering, whether you'd like to take one of these and have one. Which one would you like? Which one do you think they should have?
B.
B. Feed it. B. A. B. Okay. So the problem is that we don't really know, and the blackbird doesn't really know. So now I'm going to give it a gift of ultraviolet UV vision. Now, Blackbird, would you like, don't point it in your eyes, Blackbird. Would you like to try and find the nice ripe one here with a nice UV signal for you to eat? Do you think that's glowing a bit? Okay. Wow. Ooh. Okay. So you're going to have that. Enjoy. Yeah. So in this way, you can kind of see how essentially you can discriminate. It enables birds to be able to discriminate between good things and bad things, and be able to eat those nice sugary treats. So it might be about finding food. It also might be about finding the right mate or having secret signals to other members of your species. So this is a male zebrafinch, and zebrafinches are being studied quite a lot in biology, and particularly how they signal between males and females, and how the males use these bright red patches in order to attract a female with which they can build a nest with. So the thing is that if you have these very conspicuous signals, they can make you stand out to, a mammalian predator like us. We can easily see those red patches. Wouldn't it make sense if the birds could send some secret message in a visual channel that we can't actually see? So if we stick this bird, rather than sticking it under normal light like this, we put it under UV light, you can see it looks very different. So this is just a UV channel. And in fact, those red patches you can't really see anymore. But what you can see is that white patch has an awful lot of reflectance actually into the UV range. And there's quite a lot of work has been done now on a variety of different species, but looking at how these kinds of ultraviolet signals might send these kind of secret messages to females that a lot of predators can't actually see. So we're going to just illustrate this and how we can send these kind of secret messages with a few vision facts. And I'm just looking for a volunteer. Could someone come down? Yeah, your hand was up first. Yeah, could you come down and help me? Thank you very much. No, girl in front in red. Yeah, it is red. I can see the difference between red and green. It's red. Okay, come here. And your name?
Rebecca.
Rebecca. I'm going to give you the light. Don't shine it in your eyes like that blackbird did. And if you could just come and stand the other side here. So we're going to read out these, and then we're going to take some answers, and then secretly down here we've got some information that we're going to light up. Okay, so which animal do you think has the largest eyes? Is it good? Yeah? Yeah, okay. Yes? No, not a whale? Yes?
Octopus.
Ooh, you're getting close. Well, you're both quite close. Yes?
Squid.
Which sort?
Colossal squid.
Oh, man! Okay, let's see if you're right. Oh, ta-da! It is the colossal squid. Do you know how big they are?
The size of
Very big. That is correct. They are very big. So they're actually the size of footballs. So these are squids that actually will live at 2 kilometers of depth. They can grow up to 14 meters long. They're not afraid to attack a whale. And why do you need eyes if you're essentially living in the depths of the sea? Well, a lot of animals down there have bioluminescence. So there's little bits of light, and they have massive eyes to try and capture that light and help them find food. Okay, next one. True or false? The eye of an ostrich is bigger than its brain. Hands up who thinks that's true. Hands up who thinks that's false. Okay. Would you like to reveal the answer, our secret? It is in fact true. So well done everyone who thought it was true. The eyes of an ostrich, why do you have such big eyes? Well, if you're a big meaty treat living on the savannah surrounded by lions, you'd better be keeping your eyes open for them. So they do have very big eyes. And ostriches, they don't look very bright. You don't ask an ostrich to do your homework for you. So that's why their eyes are bigger than their brains. Okay, now the last one. What do you call a fish with no eyes? You know this. Let's see if they're right. It is in fact a fish. Correct. Okay, so that is how we can send secret messages to one another. A fish. And hopefully you can illustrated how the information in another channel that's secret can be beneficial. But thank you very much. Big hand for our helper here. Thank you very much. Okay, so Gerrit and I have given you a bit of an overview about how some animals can see. What we're going to hear about now are some specific research projects that are going on at our institute at Newcastle University, and they're on a particularly cool group of animals, the insects.
Right, so thank you, Candy. And let's go to my favorite group of animals, insects. So what I do here at Newcastle University is study their eyes, their behavior, and finding what is similar to our eyes and what is perhaps different to our eyes. So do you think, do you think that they have similar eyes to the one that we have? No. You know way too much. What ends up if you think that they're different, and then you have to tell me why they're different. Okay, I'm a bit slow, but you down here.
They see several different images of one thing.
Why do you think that they see several different images and not sure? Let's see that. Let's see here.
Because the eyes are, the eyes are bigger and they're like something different.
There are different little bits. Yeah, that's right. So.
They're called compound eyes.
Great! You know, you should take my job. You're way better than that. So they have compound eyes, and as she said, they have little tiny lenses. So Gary told us there is one lens in our eyes that brings all the light to the retina, and there is one big lens per eye. But here, in one eye, there are loads of lenses. See, can you see this tiny little square? They're all little tiny lenses. So given that they have loads of lenses, and given what you said, imagine that you are a locust approaching a tree. What do you think that the tree will look like? Do you think that locust will see loads of tiny tree, each one in little tiny lenses, or a big tree spread all over the lenses? Ends up for the blue, loads of tree, loads of lenses. Well, actually, they see just one tree spread all over the lenses. It's just like your television. It has a lot of pixels that spread all over the image. So, for example, if we see this flower like this, beautiful, this is how an insect will see them. Now, I study a particular group of insects, which are the praying mantids. And as you can see from those pictures, they are pretty cool. And they have different shape, different color, and what they generally do is that they look like their background. So you will see here there is one that is looking like an orchid. Here on the top left, my bad, you should get my job really. There is one that looks like a dead leaf. And why they do this? Because they camouflage. So what they do is that they're sitting still all the time, really well camouflaged, with their hands like this, and they're waiting for a prey to come and pass by. And when the prey is right at the right distance next to them, they strike at it, and they have their lunch served. So this is really important. They have to stay still, otherwise the prey will see them and spot that there is a predator there and fly away. So you see, it's a pretty difficult things that they have to do. And also, to spot their prey, they cannot rely on color as the birds might do. Because mantids, they can only see blue and green. So if there is, for example, the red apple against a green, a green tree, they cannot distinguish that. So how can they see it? Imagine for a moment to be a mantid, and you're looking on a tree, and you're finding your prey, so your lunch. Remember, this is a matter of survival. How many prey can you find? One prey, hands up. Two prey, hands up. Three prey, hands up. More than that? Oh, you're really good. God. Yeah, there are more than one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
But those two, the last one, they will well camouflage just as the praying mantids are. But you see, they are camouflaged when they're static, but as soon as they make them move, they were conspicuous. They kind of pop up from the screen. Why is it? Because as soon as something moves, it becomes conspicuous. And this is exactly the trick that praying mantids use. Now, I would like to have here a volunteer. One volunteer.
100.
You, come here. Okay. Now, first of all, we make this work. And you will have to be our praying mantis today. Remember, you have to catch the prey as fast as you can, because this is a matter of having your lunch or not. So what's your name, first of all?
Grace.
Okay, thank you, Grace. We're going to play this video game. So let's do it again. This is not working. But in the meantime, we're having a problem. This is problem with science. We think we're right, but we're not. Start the game. Right. You ready to play? Yeah, go. Faster. Right, fast. Whoa, whoa. Okay, that's good. Right, faster, faster. You have just one strike. Faster. Go, go, go. This is really hard. Go, go. Oh, just one finger. One finger. Okay. Whoa. Okay. Yeah, good. Yeah. See? Right. You get it? Faster, faster. Faster. This is good. Okay, go. Yeah, yeah. Okay, right. Oh, that's so hard, isn't it? Right, fast.
It's quite easy.
Is it? Oh. I found it really hard. No, more. Let's see, this is hard. Right.
It's easy and hard.
But what if you have just one strike? Now just try with one strike. One, only one. Oh, you missed it. Oh, see? Right. So you actually do it in 2.71 seconds. This is pretty good, but I'm sorry, mantids can do better. Oh. No, I'm joking. You definitely do better than me. So thank you so much. Okay, while Anne is catching, to give you the gift. Thank you. So we saw that for some of us it's really easy to catch a prey that is moving. For some of us it's not. Well, for prey, Thank you. Well, for praying mantis, it's extremely easy. So this is exactly what I do for my research. I ask praying mantis to catch their prey because I wanted to know what they can and what they cannot see. So I make them watch prey on a screen, and you see, they're really good at tracking their prey. We're gonna see another example here, and this is, I've took some example of the prey that are perhaps a bit slow, but I make them go faster and faster, and they always get it. And when they really like the prey, what they do, see it now, bam, they strike at it. And they're extremely good at it. So we increase the speed, increase how difficult is the task, and they still get it. Why? We have to answer the question, we have to investigate what is motion detection, so how they see motion. So even animals like us, we think that you're watching me, you think that I'm moving pretty smoothly, like a video, right? But what your eyes are doing and my eyes are doing are taking picture of me moving around, and then they put them together. Just imagine that you have a flip book. So those are all pictures, but if you move them together one after the other really fast, you see Homer not really happy with his food. This is exactly how our eyes and animal eyes work. The difference is that in 1 second, our eyes take 60 frames. So in 1 second, you take 60 pictures and you put them together. Mantids and other animals like flies, they take 250 of this picture and they put them together. This is the answer of this question that was in BBC News. Why is it so hard to spot a fly? because whenever you approach a fly and you think you're really slow and you're really good and your movement are almost like you can detect them, well, for them, you're moving extremely slow and they saw your movement even before you see it. So this is what I do. I investigate how praying mantids use movement to detect their prey, but there are also other researchers here, like Claire, that investigate how prey use movement to detect other predator or themselves. So thank you, and Claire.
Thank you very much. Now, if I could switch to the cameras. Now, you might have detected there was a certain amount of movement in this cage. The cage is full of locusts. And locusts live in big swarms. And what they're known to do is to devour crops. And we're going to get a view of the devouring crops when I feed them. I hope there's no one who's frightened of locusts. So I've put a big lot of grass in there. And you see, one has already moved onto it. So this cage is full of locusts. And while I'm talking, you'll see them, they're pretty hungry. They can detect this grass and they're moving towards it. So these are my research animals. They are the locusts. And what I was able to do with the locusts is because they live in swarms, I was able to look at their visual system to see what living in a swarm does for an animal. So I'll just turn this off now. If you could turn this off. Thank you. So this is a picture of a different species of locusts doing what you've just seen those ones do, which is to devour their food, like a locust. So what I found was that when the locusts are in their swarms, they use their visual systems, they use vision to detect and avoid collisions. And in the swarm, the collision could be with another locust, but equally it could be with a bird predator, because there are specific bird predators which will attack a locust that's flying in a swarm. And I found out that locusts use vision to avoid being eaten in a swarm. Now, how did I discover that? Does anybody know how I discovered that? Yes?
Tested them?
I did. I tested them. But I had a specific film that I made them watch, and I recorded from their visual system while they watched this movie. Now, what one was it? So that's what I did. I made locusts watch a movie. I didn't give them popcorn, but I gave them the equivalent, like a bit of grass or something, to encourage them. But the movie was Star Wars. Now, it wasn't the most recent Star Wars, but it was Star Wars. I used the original Star Wars, and I made the locust sit in a little plasticine chair, and I showed it Star Wars. And I showed it many different scenes from Star Wars, because I wanted to get an idea what is the visual system particularly interested in. And what I found from that this is the favourite scene of locusts. On the Death Star, Darth Vader comes towards Luke Skywalker, I think it is that, and straight towards him in his TIE fighter. And that was the scene that locusts were terrified of. So I was recording from the neurons in the locust when it watched this particular scene. Now, I found cells that looked out just for approaching objects. They were quiet all the time, apart from the fact when an object came straight towards them, they then made a lot of noise. And I've got a movie that I made earlier where you can hear the sound of the cell in the locust while it's watching an approaching object. And it's not easy to do that. You need recording equipment and a fine wire that you put in the nervous system. I don't know if any of you can see this, but I'll just show it on the movie. So this is a locust in a little plasticine armchair. She's upside down, and I was able to put a little wire electrode in her chest there and record activity from her visual system while she watched the movie. And we'll see this in operation in this clip that I made. And there's no harm comes to the locust. It goes back to the colony at the end of this recording, so you don't need to feel sorry for her. So this is
to try and estimate how the brain is working, but can you ever really measure directly nerve activity? Well, remarkably you can if you're an expert, you know what you're doing, and you happen to have a very thin wire. So would you give a warm welcome to two experts from Newcastle, Dr. Claire Ryan and Dr. Peter Simmons. So Claire, I believe you have some interesting travelling companions with you. Is that right?
We've come down the train with a box full of locusts.
Oh right, so these are live locusts?
Yes, they're all munching on the grass. There's about 6 of them in there, varying sizes.
So he's gently being placed on his back, is that right?
Yes, he's in a little bed of plasticine. It's actually a she. She's lying on her back in a bed of plasticine, and we've restrained the animal with little loops of plasticine, and Peter is putting in a very fine wire into its chest,
right.
And the wire is rather like an acupuncture wire, very fine, just a small diameter wire.
So it doesn't hurt the locust at all?
No, not at all.
That's amazing. Well, whilst Peter's setting up, because this is a very delicate procedure, let me tell you a little bit about the locust. Now, the locust is really a giant kind of grasshopper, and it has this very simple nervous system for avoiding bumping into things. The reason it needs to do this is because when they get large numbers, they can become these swarms, which are traveling in their vast numbers. There's literally millions of them, and they can fly without bumping into each other. Now, swarms can be a real problem, because when they land on a crop, they'll just ravish a crop and eat it within sort of minutes. So they are usually a pest to humans, but they've also been very helpful because we can measure their brain activity without hurting them at all. This is what you've been doing in your research, is that right?
Yes, we've been looking at particular nerve cells within its nerve system and using this recording equipment to record the electrical activity that the nerve cells make. And in fact, the noise that you will hear eventually is from a single nerve cell within the locust nerve system. And it's a very important neuron. This neuron is one of the biggest in the body of the locust, and it communicates down to the wings, and it can actually shut off the flight cycle, right, so that the locust will make a dive and avoid a predator or adjust its flight to avoid another member of the swarm.
Okay, so Peter, are we ready?
We're ready. I think she's ready as well.
She's ready. I couldn't tell the difference, to be honest, but I presume they're larger, the females, is that right?
Larger, yes.
Okay, so which part of the visual field are we going to be recording from? Which side is the locust?
Well, we're recording from the right side of the locust, but it's the part of the eye or the eye that is looking towards the left. So this she's on her back, so she's watching you.
She's watching me now?
She's watching you now.
Right, so we're going to listen into her responding to me, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let's have some silence. Listen very carefully. What you'll be hearing is the activity of the neurons. Can you hear that?
Could you hear that? Sort of
Do you realize you're listening to the brain of a locust? Now we know it's from the brain because we know it's from that side, because if I come from the other side, you don't get the effect. Whereas, actually, I think she's paying quite a lot of attention to me now, isn't she? That is absolutely fascinating. Shall we try with this? This represents another large locust flying in the swarm towards it. can we get a close-up of the locust, just to show you? We can't let go, because if she gets a chance, she'll run away. And you can see there that she's perfectly okay.
And she bit me.
And she bit you, so that's revenge. She's getting her own back indicator, so let's put her back with her friends and let them go. Can we have a big round of applause for the locust?
So you could really hear the sound of this big neuron, so that you could hear the locust watching the presenter there. So that's one big brain neuron. So you might ask, well, what use is this research? What can we do with it? Well, the next phase of the talk is how we might make use of the inspiration that biology gives us. This is a big neuron. It does an important thing. It helps the locust avoid collisions in a big swarm, and it also allows it to avoid bird predators. Now, we want to develop autonomous vehicles, cars that drive themselves. Well, where can we get inspiration for a collision avoidance system? And this is the sort of work that I've been working on at the moment with colleagues across the globe, but in particular, what we've been able to do is we have put the vision system of the locust into these little robots. So each of these little robots has got a particular copy of the locust visual system implanted in it. Now, my colleagues Ching Bin and Cheng are going to demonstrate the capabilities of these robots, but by gradually introducing one robot at a time. Now, I'll introduce Cheng, who will tell you about it, and he will also ask for a volunteer from the audience to be the approaching predator. Now, I think you had your arm up first. Have you been up before? No? Come down then. Is that all right?
Yep, of course. Okay, so these are the robots, and its name, also she, is Colliers, and we are inviting them from Lincoln. Okay, as you may already have seen from the previous slides, the nature has demonstrated the preyers and predators, the relationships. But talking about the robots, how we are inspired from the nature that we can avoid collisions into each other or avoid capture by predator is what we are looking now. So you may have noticed that there are some robots here, and some of them are equipped with some flashing lights there on top of the robot. Okay, I want you to answer a question by yourself. And what is the information the robot is getting from the environment? Okay, now let one of the robots move, the black one. The black one. Okay. First of all, it can avoid collisions from the wall or the barrier. So it's quite nimble.
Using purely vision, isn't it?
Yes.
No ultrasound.
No touch, but in front of it.
Now, do you want to
Yes.
try moving your hand, putting it, see whether you can capture one, and you can wiggle your fingers.
Yes, in front of it.
Wiggle your fingers right in front of it.
Yes.
No, not above it, but in front of it, because its eye looks
Yes,
forward.
yes, looking forward.
Oh, turn away.
And he will turn away if he detects your hand.
You're frightening it. And for the one with the flashing lights on top, what you can see from the behaviors of the lights.
And when it detects a collision, the lights light all the way up and turn red.
Yes, when they are all shut off and or when they are flashing. Any ideas?
Oh, we've got a very good volunteer there. Very quick.
You're good at catching the robots.
So what we conclude from this is that these are actually running several versions of the locust neuron in their control structure, and we're learning what it is that how we can build these artificial vision sensors. And although these robots are quite simple, they are research machines, and they have downloaded into their structure, they have the connections that we know happen in the locust. So the last thing I'd like to show you is what's happened to that grass. If we can have a look. Can you see the... Thank you very much. So you can see the locusts are very good at devouring plants. When you have a swarm of locusts that lands on crops, this is what they do.
Right, well, we'll leave the locusts and the robots over there. I think that kind of concludes this evening's talks, with a very real example of how science from the lab has actually been translated into a real-world application, and hopefully will lead to safer cars in the future. So I would like to thank all of you for coming this evening. And I'd also like to thank our 4 speakers, which was Candy, Gerrit, Diana and Claire. And of course, unfortunately, this research isn't possible unless we have funders. And so we'd like to thank the BBSRC, Leverhulme Trust, and also the EU Horizon Step to Dyna funding for these projects. And I think maybe, if we could have our 4 speakers up, maybe we've got time for a question or 2, if anyone has one. At the very, almost at the back there. Yeah? So, do the robots use the port starboard rule?
Starboard.
No, port starboard rule. So that you want to know whether they pass one another in a way which is always the same. No, we use a very simple rule. If they detect it, they move away. It is much more simple than that. But we could implement this port starboard rule, especially if they had a goal that they were going towards, so that you had them travelling in the same direction. That was a very good question.
Up at the top as well with the glasses.
Using this idea, could humanity potentially create automated flying vehicles which could kind of dodge each other and be safe in a kind of way consistent?
I think that would be a very good goal. I think that is one of the thoughts we have. But when you're in flight, you've got many more degrees of freedom compared with when you are a car. And perhaps it would take a little bit more research to be able to implement collision avoidance in the air. But locusts do it. So I imagine that is that is one of the things that we're thinking of, and that's where we're looking at now, isn't it? That is perhaps the next area that we're looking at. So very well spotted.
At the back in the red? Yeah, you two.
So, humans have eye colour. Why have we evolved to have that? What's the point of it?
Why have we evolved eye colour?
The iris.
The iris or the vision colour?
No, the eye colour.
The eye colour.
So that's a really good question. Perhaps as an evolutionary biologist I should try and take on.
Maybe the dog.
Yeah. So we don't actually know. There's very little research on why animals have the colours of eyes that they do have. There are some kind of correlations to do with the kind of colour you might have and the kind of lifestyle you might have. So there might be things about the pigmentation in your eye overall, in terms of how quickly it can process information, and perhaps lighter eyes are better at doing those kinds of tasks. But there isn't a big literature on this, and it's not a robust literature at all. It may be that some of the eyes is also about communicating with other members of your species as well. So there's some evidence that, like the male zebrafinch with its red signals, with its red beak and its patch, that actually if you have a very red eye, that can signal your health to a potential mate, that you're in good condition, and that you're free from germs and things like that. So they may have a signalling role as well, some communication between one animal and another.
So you had your hand up for a very long time. Sorry, why do the locusts?
Do they use gyroscopic stability?
So do the locusts use gyroscopic stability?
No, but they have, I'm not sure whether you saw the mask out there, which was of the locust head. They not only have the compound eyes, they have an extra 3 set of simple eyes, and they use those to measure the stability of the horizon. Flies have gyroscopes called their halteres, but locusts, they use their simple eyes, the arrangement of them, to detect when they dip down below the horizon. That means that their ocelli darken, and they know that they've got to come back up again. So they use a different sense to keep themselves level, and they use vision. They use the flow field to detect that they're going straight forward as they wish, and they're not moving up and down. So no, they don't use gyroscopic. But I did actually have a drone here, but we couldn't fly it safely enough to demonstrate it. It flew out into the audience, and we thought somebody might get their eye taken out. Probably one of you would be better at it than we were.
We maybe do one more quick question in the blue.
No?
Deer?
Completely black eyes. Why?
Deers have completely black eyes. Any idea why?
Diana, you haven't answered a question.
Get it all about roe deer.
Deer?
Yeah, well, they're pretty dark, all of them, isn't it? They're all bodies, so it could be that if they had bright eye, then they will not be well camouflaged in the dark of the forest. So it could be that it's because they are better camouflaged that way.
I think in humans as well, if you don't have any pigment in your eye, if you are an albino person which has no pigment, you can't go out in the bright sunlight. So pigment helps screen the eyes from sunlight. Yeah. So it's something like a deer which lives in areas of patches of sunlight and dark, perhaps having pigment as much as they do help it to screen its eye and help it keep the eye in the operating range it needs to be in.
Right. I think we might have to keep it to a close because I'm sure that lots of you need to get home and make lists and things. But I would like to thank you once again very, very much for coming and for listening to Animal Vision. Do come back next week for Human Vision, and thank you, class. Thank you.